Joe, your emotions over the last 72 hours. What was your reaction when you found out the news and being named interim coach? And what have you done? Have you had you sleep over the last 3 days?
Yeah, slept pretty well. I think you just, in moments like this, you just have to stay empathetic. You have to stay poised, and you have to stay focused on, what's the most important thing. And the most important thing for me is making sure that the players and myself are on the same page, making sure we're focused on the expectations that we have for this season from a basketball standpoint, and how we move forward together, building trust and building relationships. I think that's key.
How much time have you had to just prepare for this, and how do you prepare jumping into it so quickly as opposed to knowing that you're going to be the head coach from the whole offseason?
Yeah. I'm in a fortunate situation because I've been here for 3 years, and we've had the off season to kind of prepare for what we wanted to do heading into the season. So there's not much to change at all. I think it's just about learning from last season and then how do we get better. So I'm really relying on the relationships that I've built in the 3 years here, especially with the players and the organization, and just kind of moving forward one day at a time.
Hey, Joe. There's obviously with you being head coach now, your spot as the assistant is open. Do you plan on adding to your staff? Is that a decision that you'll be making individually or working with Brad on? What are your plans there?
Yeah, I think we'll make that decision together. I think the last thing in a moment like this is to rush into something. I think it's about really just taking your time, seeing what is best for the players, what is best for the organization, and then just making sure we're patient in that. So I think we'll do that together. Yep.
Joe, what do you think the challenge is going to be for you, given that the players just kind of learned that Ime isn't going to be coaching this year over the last couple of days? Just what has kind of been the reactions they've had in conversation with you so far, and what's going to kind of be your message for the team?
I mean, the message is first to give people space and time, not just for the players, but for everybody. It's an unfortunate situation for everyone involved, and so you have to give people the time and space to feel and the time and space to heal. And so that's key. You can't rush anything. And, the great thing about this organization, the players that we have, and the season last year is we have a formula for what we know we need to do in order to get better every single day and get back to where we want to get to. And so as much as we can focus on that, we'll be in good shape.
Considering the way you're coming into the job, it's not the same way that you came into the job with the big hiring process. How much do you feel like you need to establish your place at the top of the leadership, the way that it works for this organization, or do you feel like the relationships you've already built allow you to just kind of have that happen naturally?
I mean, that's probably the last thing I want to do is that. I think I want to, I don't think I know. I think it's more of a collaboration. I think we have to do this together. I don't think we need to speed up authority or speed up decisions or speed up identity. I think we have to be patient. We have to really rely on the foundations that we built as far as relationships and the foundations and habits that we built on the basketball court because they're successful. And so I think that's the most important thing is focus on all the things we were great at as a team, and then how can we evolve and make those even better to get to where we want to go.
Joe, at the press conference on Friday, Brad and Wick both talked about how hard it was to watch some of the other female employees on the team be dragged through the Twitter speculation with all the allegations against Ime. I'm wondering, how hard was that for you to watch? And I guess what are you doing to move forward, especially for those female employees who feel like they were dragged through this?
Yeah, like I said, I think it's about really being patient, giving people this situation has affected everybody. It's affected everyone. And so being as patient as we can and giving people the time to feel and heal, I think are the two most important things. And, you can't rush trust, you can't rush healing, you can't rush any of that. And so just being present for whoever needs us to be present for, I think is key. And being a listener and then how can we provide support for everyone, I think are the things that I'm focused on how to help. Yep.
Right here. Joe, I think you said that you were going to talk with Brad about coaching and assistants and so forth. Is there interest in your part on bringing in somebody from the outside who would effectively be your guy?
I mean, again, I don't know that it's about that. I thought one of the biggest strengths of our team last year was our relationships, players, staff dynamics. I think all that is important. And so to come in and try to rush something that is not what's best for our players is not something I'm looking to do. And so it's not about whose guy or whose it is. We have great players, and our staff dynamics are strong, and I really trust that. And I've watched all of us work. We all work together, so we have great collaboration. I think it's about focusing on that. Yeah.
Joe, over here, back there. You said before we have a formula. Can you talk about what that is, like what the mission statement of that is for basketball?
Yeah.
And did that stem from Ime when he came in last year? And do you feel like you're just carrying that on?
For sure. I think, again, it's not about carrying on one person. It's about carrying on the identity of our players. And so, we had our struggles early last season, but at our best, we knew what our identity was. It was our defense. It was our buy-in from a defensive standpoint. And then it was sharing the ball and moving quickly on the offensive end. So as much as we can stick to the things that we were great at last year, and then find small areas to improve along the way, I think is the right way to go.
Joe, the mixed emotions from getting probably what is a dream job, but on the other side, the circumstances of it. And have you had conversations with Ime over the last couple of days, and is he giving you his blessing, or what's those conversations been like?
Like I said, I've reached out to everybody, and I've talked to everyone in the organization, and I thought it was my job to listen and give people space and time and ask people what they need. So I've worked to do that for everyone in the organization, since the news is broke.
Just a technical point. You said you've reached out to everyone in the organization. Considering the previous coach isn't part of the organization, have you spoken with him?
I've spoken to everyone who's I feel like has been needed to be spoken to, and the people that I've built relationships with. So yes.
Joe, I think one of the things that caught people by surprise was when Brad spoke the other day, he was very adamant that he felt you were the right guy for the position. Why do you think he feels so strongly? You haven't had a lot of experience as a head coach. Yeah. Why such a strong endorsement for Brad in your skill set?
He had a concussion that day, I think. No, listen, you're never really ready. I've been a head coach before, and what I learned from year one to year two from that standpoint was, I wasn't ready. And it's not because I didn't work at it. It's not because I didn't prepare. It's because, there's certain things that you have to learn on the job. And so year two was much different than year one for me, and I'm really able to pull from those experiences. And so I think it's more about just pulling from those experiences. And then, listen, I worked for a lot of great head coaches and played for great head coaches, and I think it's about taking a formula of what worked for those guys and how I can make it into, making these players better.
Are you as confident as he is? And how does the interim title affect your position?
I am as confident as he is, and I can't focus on that. Like I said, at the end of the day, regardless of what has happened, we have a great roster and we have a great opportunity. And, I think that's what I have to focus on and get this team where it needs to go.
Joe, right in front of you. Brad also said when bringing up your hiring process back in 2019 that he's addressed and vetted 2008 and 2009. He said you've changed for the better since then. How do you feel you've changed since then? And have you spoken about that with this team?
Of course. Listen, I've made mistakes. I'm not perfect. I've hurt people, and I've had to use the situations I put myself in as a younger man. I've had to use to learn from and to become a better person. And that's what I've tried to focus on: is how can I recreate my identity as a person? How can I rely on my faith? And how can I just have a positive impact on the people around me? And I've always had good people around me.
Referencing that, can you kind of, it's obviously a long time has passed, 13, 14 years, but can you kind of shed some light on the incidents and how you kind of moved on from it and didn't let it kind of derail your future, and what actually kind of took place?
I can't talk about like the specifics of that, but what I can talk about is I'm not the same person that I was. And I think as you grow as a person, you're constantly having to build an identity. And, you know, I didn't have an identity at a certain point in my life for whatever reason. And I think it's how can I develop an identity? How can I find a foundation, which for me is my faith? And then how can I, you know, impact people positively around me? And that's something that I've really learned, you know, throughout my life.
I was going to sort of follow up with a similar thing. You've mentioned a couple times that you've sort of built a foundation, and you know, kind of what would you consider that to be if you were going to describe it to people?
My identity. I know who I am.
Yeah.
I know why I got into coaching. I think I know my why. I think, you know, especially growing up, if you don't have a compass, it's very hard to direct yourself. And so you have to learn that on your own sometimes. And so, you know, for me, my identity has come from my faith, and it's come from my purpose. And you know, I got into coaching because I've had people pour into me. I've had people sacrifice for me, and I want to reciprocate that to my players and to the people around me.
And sort of along those lines, you alluded to the fact that you guys turned things around midway through last year. You want to build on that. Do you have specific things that you envision doing significantly differently on the court wise, or is it really more just a matter of continuing what you guys are doing in the second half?
It's definitely continuing what we have been doing, and really it's the same answer to that question is like identity. For the team last year, we were figuring each other out. We were figuring out what the strengths and weaknesses were as far as players and staff, and you know, once that identity clicked, we were really able to, you know, kind of move forward. And I think it's the same thing. Like the questions we're going to ask ourselves as a team is what worked well, what didn't, and what do we need to improve on to get to where we want to go.
Final couple questions. Go John first.
You talk about the emotions, and you know, this has been a bombshell for everybody. How much of a setback is this for preparing a team for a season, and a season that most people expect to be contending for a championship? How much does this kind of stunt the team's development as you try to get over that and try to impart what you're trying to do?
Yeah. I mean, again, if I want the Celtics to be successful, if I want our players to be successful, I shouldn't be focused on what I'm trying to do. It's what is best for our players. And so as much as we can focus on that, my question would be, why do things have to change? And it's only my job to focus on the execution standpoint. How do we execute our togetherness? How do we execute, you know, maximizing the potential of our roster? And then how do we execute our habits on the offense and defensive end of the floor? And so I think that's kind of where we have to shift our perspective to is, you know, what can we focus on from a successful season last year, and how do we make it better?
Right-hand side, coach.
Yep.
Joe, Danilo's hurt, out for the year. Rob's going to be out 3 months, new head coach. Can you guys make it back to the finals, and can you win it?
I think all those things you just listed give us an opportunity to grow, an opportunity to create an identity that we're going to need to get to where we want to go. And so anytime you have an injury, you're asking other people to step up, whether that's on staff or whether that's as your roster. And so I think the main message to our players is, one, you're talented. One, we have great players. We have a great team. And what were we great at? And what do we need to work on to get to where we want to go? And regardless of who the coach was, that was going to be the message, you know, because of the belief we have in our roster.
Final question, Coach. Dara Sullivan.
Hi, Joe. Could you just, in as much detail as possible, sort of share what that day was like for you, how you were informed, how you found out, what your feelings were, if it was Brad who came straight to you? Just fill us in a little bit what that, so we can kind of feel what you went through that day.
I mean, I just listened, you know, to what the organization said. And then, you know, because of the timeline, we don't really have that much time. Like I said, the most important thing to me was giving people space and opportunity to communicate how they feel and not rush the process of their healing. And that was what I was focused on. And then the second most important thing is our players. You know, how can we get them better? And then how can I rely on them because of how good they are? And, you know, how good our team is.
Thank you very much, Coach.
Thank you.